I think from the Boston-Toronto perspective, the rivalry has changed quite a bit, I would say, in the last couple of years, right? Where it was like two perennial juggernauts, and now it seems like Boston's retooling a bit, eh?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I wasn't in favor of like this sort of tear down rebuild. And Sweeney, he certainly gets his criticism here in Boston, but I thought what he did was kind of masterful toward the end. Just bit the bullet, said, "All right, these guys, that either UFAs or veterans, get something for them." And he really did build for the future. Ended up getting a great pick in Hagens at the draft. So I think he set him up real nice for the next couple of years. I think the fans should probably expect a bit of a holding pattern here as far as Boston, maybe squeaking the playoffs, maybe not, but building towards the future down the line a little bit. In Toronto, you guys, huge loss. I mean, Marner's not a guy you easily replace. Nick Roy's a great pickup. He's a veteran that, I think Berube will love. I think the fans will love him, but Marner's not a guy you easily replace. But I think you guys are definitely ahead of the Bruins still. I mean, you gave Florida the toughest punch of the playoffs last year, and but for, a dirty hit on their goalie, may well have moved on. So for probably the first time in a long time, we could say maybe Toronto's here, Boston's here as far as the rivalry, Nick.
All right, you've got some rose-colored glasses on. A masterful, masterful plays by Boston.
just a deadline. Just a deadline.
I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried about you guys, but all right, I like the positivity. But losing Marchand, obviously, the first time we saw him in a Panthers uniform, it looked weird, man. And obviously, for him to go off and have the success as the player he is, I don't think people didn't expect him to have some success where he went. But to see his departure, did you have any hope of getting him back on July 1? Was there any buzzes about him coming back to Boston?
I didn't have much hope on it. I think there might have been a little bit of scuttlebutt, but I think the fact that he wasn't able to re-sign and they had to part ways with him. I think that was pretty indicative. He probably wasn't going to come back. I know we've seen players get traded. I mean, I think a big Walt back in the day getting traded to Atlanta. I think they were one and done, and then he went back to St. Louis. But yeah, it was a bummer to see him go. But I mean, fans complaining. It's like when they get rid of him, we say we might get a first round out of this 37-year-old injured guy who definitely has some miles left, but.
Yeah.
It was sad to see him go, and I wasn't necessarily, rooting for anybody in the cup this year as opposed to last year, which I was all go Panthers as we know. But I was just enjoying it, and if I love Marchand, what he did here. I got to know him a little bit, living across the street from him and stuff, and I was very happy for him. He solidified his Hall of Fame resume even more. But to criticize the Bruins for we only got a first round, I don't think anybody thought he was going to go off to the extent he did. Although it shouldn't have been too surprising with his skill level being on the third line and having taking advantage of matchups there. But it's sad here. But I don't know. After Bobby Orr being in a Blackhawks uniform, there's nothing worse than that. So I can't cry my beer too much over here, Jay.
That's fair. And RA, there were some wild rumors as July 1st got closer and closer. And I think this is the biggest troll job yet, that I think a lot of Leafs Nation, at least myself, believed there was a chance Brad Marchand was going to become a Toronto Maple Leaf. Do you think there was any chance in hell this guy was even thinking about being a Maple Leaf?
Stop listening to those bullshit podcasts. We're making up rumors.
I know, eh?
No, all jokes aside, I'm sure, he probably took calls. I mean, that's what you do. That's what your agent does. You hear everybody out. You see, sometimes you get blown out of the water, like the Bruins were with David Backes years ago. But I don't think there was any real chance he was going to go there. I mean, especially after winning the Cup at Florida. They're primed for a dynasty right now. I mean, I think you could even say, you go to 3 Cups in 3 years and win 2 of them. And with the modern standards and the cap the way it is, I would have any issue calling them a dynasty now. I know typically it's usually 3 championships, but to go there, of course, I know the no state tax thing is a big thing people talk about, but I don't think it mattered much with Marchand. He's a guy who took less essentially his whole career here in Boston to build a winner. And it reminds me of the quote Sid Crosby said on Chiclets years ago. And, it doesn't work. The paraphrasing it, but it doesn't work if everybody doesn't take less. You know what I mean? Like some guys have to take less dough, and Marchand did that for years here, and Florida still got a pretty good bargain with them. But he's definitely going to be missed here. I'll tell you that.
Talking about the deadline too, a pickup that came in at the 11th hour from Tree Living that I don't know if a lot of people saw was the Leafs picking up Brandon Carlo. Obviously very talented right-handed defenseman. What was your thoughts on Carlo's time in Boston, and what do you think the Leafs fan can expect for him in his first full season coming up here?
I loved Carlo here. He was real physical when he started, but then he had some concussion issues, which you got to be careful in this day and age. I think fans in Boston, obviously, when you're a big guy, big defenseman, they want to see you drop the puck. Yeah, drop the gloves a little bit more. But he had to be really careful the last few years. I think they could expect a really solid, middle pair guy, probably bottom four guy even sometimes. But he's one of those defensemen, Jay, where if you don't see him do anything, it means he's doing his job, kind of. You know what I mean? He'll pinch in offensively here and there, but basically he's really good in his own end. He shuts down plays. He just kind of snuffs things out before they really happen. And yeah, good on the penalty kill. I think Leafs fans are going to like him. Just a solid, dependable defenseman. Like I said, if you don't notice him, it means he's probably doing his job well.
How was that deal perceived in Boston? Because we were live when it happened. We're like, holy shit. Like, A, Carlo got dealt, and B, was to the Maple Leafs, who are in the same division. How is the deal being perceived? And obviously, you got a pretty good prospect in Fraser Minton, too.
Yeah, I think people it was well received here. I think again, Carlo's going to be probably gone anyways. We were expecting a whole bunch of guys to get traded, and Minson's a pretty good prospect. So I think people here are fine with it. Again, Carlo, I think in the city, like a lot of the Hato fans here, they get on like again, big defensemen, or if they think they're quote unquote soft. And Carlo, anything but soft. Again, he had concussion issues, so he had to kind of change his style a little bit, not be as maybe reckless, but. Yeah, people here like the deal. I think the most fans did like Carlo here, but it certainly wasn't on the level of Marchand. But I didn't hear too many people crying about that deal. Again, we got a pretty good prospect out of the deal.
Mm-hmm. You talked about the retooling that the Bruins have done here. What's your prediction on them? Are they making the playoffs this season coming up?
I'd call it probably a coin flip. I think they're going to be significantly better. I think Marco Sturm was a great hire. I know he hasn't been an NHL coach yet, but he's had a pretty steady progression. There's a lot of scuttlebutt that he's a pretty good coach. And I think most importantly, Jeremy Swayman's going to have a full training camp. The team's not going to dick him around over a small amount of money once again to delay his, getting to the team and not having a camp. And, then obviously the team wasn't that great anyways. They fired the friggin' coach. So I think the whole season started askew for Swayman last year. I think that's going to be the opposite this year. And yeah, if he plays to the level that we're expecting him, I think they could squeeze in, to a 7 or 8 spot. I mean, they obviously they waved the white flag early this year, but they made a couple of decent moves. I mean, Arvidsson, he's again a middle 6 guy. You can kind of plug him in wherever. But there's a lot of parts with Boston. You just don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Guys like McAvoy, obviously Pasternak, Swayman. That's 3 guys you can build around right there. So I think they should get in, Jay. But if they don't, no surprise. And if they don't, I hope they tank again and try to get McKenna.
Yeah, that's the big conversation. It sounds like a lot of teams don't want to sign offer sheets right now because of the potential of a Gavin McKenna, out there. And it sounds like he's going to, go over to college, the NCAA, as soon as today. But more on Marner. Obviously, there's a lot of intrigue around the division too. How weird is it going to be for you as a Bruins fan, playing against the Maple Leafs, not seeing the familiar number 16 out there? And what did you make of everything and how it went down with Marner and his exit here from Toronto?
I felt bad for him in some ways because, he was definitely the whipping boy there. I mean, obviously there's valid criticisms. I mean, what was it, 8-10 years? They didn't get too far in the playoffs at all. Obviously never got too close to a cup. And, he had to go chase the money elsewhere. I think if Toronto probably years ago, I mean, this isn't a knock on Tavares, but they, probably should have spent that money on defensemen and maybe, some more depth guys. And then maybe they would have had money to keep Marner now. But yeah, it's going to stink to not have him, visiting the Garden a couple times a year and seeing him because he's a treat, man. He's a hell of a player. It's great to watch him play. Again, I know the criticisms are warranted, but I think they were way overboard, and doing an interview in the streets. I know people are so friggin' angry and miserable about everything everywhere now, but like, oh, F him, like, screw him anyways. It's like, man, have a little gratitude with this guy, he came here, he played his ass off for you. He's a dynamic player. He's going to a great team, and you don't have to root for Vegas now. But I thought there was a level of disrespect that wasn't commensurate with what he did for the Maple Leafs in the last decade or whatever.
Do you think he's going to have more success in Vegas than he had in Toronto, personally?
Oh yeah, yes, I do. They built like it's sort of like they did it in a lab somehow. They built like a winning culture like instantly in that place, and they're ruthless. They're mercenaries as far as bringing this guy. Yeah, this guy won a cup for us last year. Out the door. We got to try to win another one. I mean, that's what you want as a fan of a team. But I think Marner's going to have a hell of a year. He's on a team that knows how to win. And I think guys around him, maybe will get in his ear a little, maybe that other guys weren't in Toronto as far as, hey, buddy, it's the playoffs, man. You got to let your balls hang a little bit more. You got to be a little bit tougher. And I think he'll definitely have success there. And I wouldn't be surprised if he has a monster year out there, what they have, especially the way, I don't know if he's going to play with Jack or not, but the way Jack Eichel's been playing the last couple of years, he's finally become that, not finally, but that dominant forward that we've been expecting, the level he's at now. Yeah, Marner could have a monster year if he does play with Jack.
We're going to find out if he plays with Jack, as Bruce Cassidy's coming up on this show in about 10 minutes from now. But I just want to wrap by asking the other side of the equation, the Maple Leafs. Do you think there's a scenario, is there a pathway where the Maple Leafs finally unlock something they haven't unlocked in the Stanley Cup playoffs without Marner?
Yeah, absolutely. He's one guy. I mean, it's a huge loss once again, but, they brought in Nick Roy. They brought in Matthias Michelli. I thought that was a pretty solid move. But, the biggest thing we got to talk about is, your goaltender, your number one goaltender getting hurt in the playoffs last year, Stolas. And he was lights out. I thought he was a great sign for you guys. And honestly, could have went all the way with him and that. So losing him was huge. So, yeah, I expect if Stolas is there being healthy next year in the playoffs, you guys should 100% be back on the same position, hopefully battling Florida for the conference championship again, because it was a great series. Game 7 was kind of tough, but yeah, you guys, a huge loss with Marner, but I don't think it's one guy. It shouldn't be that much of a drop-off, and if your goaltending does what it did last year, man, Leafs should be right back at it.
All right, RA, looking forward to it. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Great seeing that mug once again. Have a great summer, and we'll talk soon, okay, bud?
All right, boys. Thanks a lot. Take care, guys.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.